This is the Premier League preview. We are back again in partnership with SofaScore to dive through all the big games in the Premier League this weekend. We're going to be diving into tactics, statistics, and all that good stuff. Anyway, it's time to dive in. The biggest game in English football, Man United versus Liverpool. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer versus Jurgen Klopp. Luke Shaw up against Mohamed Salah is going to be a monumental battle in this game. We've got the predicted lineups right now. Man United going 4-2-3-1. Liverpool with their classic 4-3-3. Nobody missing, bar the likes of Rafa Varane, you'd say, for Man United. In the squads in terms of injuries for United, but it's going to be pretty much first sort of choice for both teams. A few players out for Liverpool, Thiago and Harvey Elliott. Maybe they'd start both of the games. Thiago obviously good last time out in the Premier League against Manchester United, but this game is going to be absolute fire, guys, fire. Apparently Bruno might be injured. The Sun reported that Bruno was limping after training, and what have we got? Man United, 5 players out. Rafa Varane, back on the 30th. Diallo, 24th. Martial, 24th. Rashford, dead leg, should be back. Fred, hamstring injury, no return date. So they're the two big concerns for United. Fred and Marcus Rashford, in terms of the injuries picked up midweek. Nothing on Bruno Fernandes as of yet. Liverpool, Curtis Jones out injured, but should be back for the game. Harvey Elliott is out for a long time, having that horrible injury. Thiago, no return date as well. In terms of Manchester United, how should United line up against Liverpool? Ole Gunnar Solskjaer very much reverting away from the back three in recent games. In the 3-2 win in the FA Cup, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer went with a 4-2-3-1. Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford causing all types of damage on the counter-attack. This is a good learning game from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in terms of the big things to how to open up Liverpool. I think there's a lot of things learned in the game in terms of the positionally, creating channel to channel, which was a theme in the game previously to that. But also, I think the counter and the speed of both Marcus Rashford and Mason Greenwood. Rashford assisting the first goal for Greenwood, a big switch of play out to that right-hand side. And of course, Greenwood assisting Rashford with a nice little ball over the top. And I think that kind of idea should be taken by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in terms of, utilising two forwards in this game. I think that's got to be a big part of how United line up. I think having, two players that are going to be playing in those wide areas, very, very important to attack kind of the two channels, as we call it, of Liverpool. When their fullbacks attack, the space opens up, which Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford can get involved. There will be a bit of a problem, in my opinion, in terms of Liverpool's attackers pulling United narrow, and then their wing-backs getting space to cross. I think that's a big situation that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's sides need to deal with. But the counter is on. That is the big thing, countering down the left-hand side and looking for that big switch of play down right, as we saw in the 3-2 win in the FA Cup, but also the other way around of Mason Greenwood holding the ball and then Rashford darting in behind the defence and Mason looking for him over the top. I think it's two really good avenues. I think one of the big things for me in terms of Manchester United and how they should line up, obviously without Rafa Varane, it should be more on looking at a back three. I think Atletico Madrid were really good midweek in phases and, arguably should have come away with a draw, if not a win, at the end of the game. But what I liked about Atletico Madrid's shape and setup, it allowed Liverpool to have the ball in certain areas. The pressure from central midfield wasn't that big. It was more waiting for a switch and then pressurising from wing-back. And I think that allows high turnovers against his Liverpool team. Liverpool's build-up shape this season is simply phenomenal, in my opinion. I think Liverpool are really, really good. And this is kind of a nice picture of how they build. They've got their two wide players, number 10, Sadio Mane, and number 11, Mohamed Salah. Super wide, super high. Not as narrow as it used to be. They have a bit of a box midfield that's geared towards the right-hand side being more aggressive than the left-hand side. Milner spent a lot of this game playing as a third centre-back in possession with Henderson sitting just in front, and then Naby Keita, number 8, being a Mazzala and playing on a similar line to Roberto Firmino. One of the big things that you've got to understand about Salah this season is he's a lot wider versus last season. So there's this That's in the Champions League. Let's go to the Premier League. So I think he's a little wider than he was last season. Let's see if we can see that in the heat map. So we can kind of see that. So this heat map is a lot more involved in the inside right channel, whereas this season it's a little bit wider. And it's a minute detail, but you can see the heat maps are different in terms of where the red is, where he's spending the most of his time, where he's getting the most touch of the ball. And that's something that you've got to adapt. You really do. That's something that you have to adapt to. So Salah and Mane are going to play wider roles. So which means that Wan-Bissaka and Shaw have got to be the fullbacks because you need the players that are going to be best in those 1v1 situations out wide. And that's where I feel you've got to go Shaw, Wan-Bissaka as wing-backs, and then a back three. Bay, Lindelof, Maguire. I think that's very, very important to dealing with the threat of Liverpool, is to kind of counter-attacking that. You know, this is something that's been really good from Liverpool this season. Salah in a wider position, Trent Alexander-Arnold inside, and then this inside central midfielder making more forward motions to open up that space, or alternatively dropping back and covering Trent to play more as a central midfielder, more of as a Matt Salah in those positions. And that's something where Liverpool are creating diamonds in possession really well this season, moving the ball forward. But Trent in these positions is becoming really dangerous, crossing from these inside positions, inside right, inside left. And that's something that you've got a problem. And with a three-man midfield, you can technically deal with that. That you should have that width to deal with it. So Fred can deal with Robertson. Obviously, if you've got a situation where Henderson's a bit deeper and, you know, you've got slightly more of a tactical issue, you know, Maguire can sit on Henderson and then it frees up Fred to close that play down again. And I think that's a really important thing for Liverpool is they're creating from this right-hand side a lot more than they have done in the past. It is a different makeup and United need to adapt that in terms of their personnel. And it's not like playing the same Liverpool team because things have changed this season. Mohamed Salah has been so good this season. And again, look at the heat map, wide positioning, wide starting position from Mohamed Salah. His goal against Atletico when he cut in from the right, just went past three players, was so good. Score predictions, get them in right now, guys. Get them in. We are going to West Ham versus Tottenham. Recently has been the return of Harry Kane. I think his form is starting to really pick up, and I think he's a dangerous player. Scored 15 goals in the Premier League in 2021. Only Salah scored more in this calendar year, and that is still down, over the fact that you've got a player that is out of form in quotation marks this season. And I think his play in the last two games, I thought he was absolutely fantastic against Newcastle. A lot more moves in behind the defence, a lot more involved in the possession as well. A goal and an assist, 36 touches of the ball, completed 92% of his passes. It was more like the old school Harry Kane, where he was given a real freedom to get around the pitch and then got onto the ball in the decent areas. And I feel that's kind of like looking at where he can go. Ndombele at number 10 was an absolute phenom versus Newcastle United. And over the last two games where he's played number 10 for Nuno Espirito Santo's side, has had 20 progressive carries, more than twice as many as any of player to play in those two games. I think when we look at his stats versus Newcastle, sublime, 98 touches, 61 passes at a 92% completion rate, 4 shots, 4 out of his 9 dribbles completed, 4 out of 4 of his tackles won, and of course rounded off with a goal. Ndombele playing that energy role ahead of Skip and Højbjerg in midfield. In terms of West Ham United, for this game, obviously Michail Antonio is going to be a huge threat to that Spurs backline that's looked so weak. And I think one of the big things with Michail Antonio, he loves getting into the channels. He loves dropping deep. He loves being that physical target. I think he's going to have a field day against Cristian Romero, Eric Dyer, but more importantly, against Emerson Royale and Reguilon. I think in those positions is where we've seen the best out of Antonio. Look how wide he's getting and how involved he's getting behind the Leeds fullbacks who got pulled all over the place by the fluidity of West Ham's forward line under David Moyes, something that I never thought I'd ever say. But Bowen moving, Ben Rama moving around, and also, looking at the likes of Fornells as well, so interchangeable. I think that caused Leeds a lot of problems. But very much back to this kind of Spurs game, that interchange could really open up Spurs, and I think it will come from Antonio getting into the channels, receiving it in the channels. Maybe West Ham go long into the channels, and Ben Rama checking inside, because Ben Rama's a player that needs to step up for West Ham United. It's been a little bit hit and miss in the last few games. His performance against Leeds was very good. 5 shots, 3 chances created. Heung-min-son maybe in the transition as well. I think West Ham may have the ball, which may lead to this kind of Spurs setup that we've seen under Nuno Espirito Santo, playing very much in the transition in quite a narrow way. Brighton versus Man City in the Premier League. 2 of the most progressive managers coming up against each other. Graham Potter facing Pep Guardiola. Brighton are unbeaten in 5 games in the Premier League. Only Liverpool and Man City have longer unbeaten runs in the competition. However, Graham Potter's side have also failed to win their last 3. Kevin De Bruyne, 68 assists in the Premier League under Pep Guardiola. And I think he's going to be a crucial player for this City team. He hasn't quite started firing yet for me, Kevin De Bruyne. I felt like the Club Brugge game midweek, we started to see Kev back into his motion. Thought there was some good touches. There was some good passes. Of course, grabbed himself an assist from the 2 chances created. But we're not at those 6, 7, 8 chances created per game yet with Kevin De Bruyne. I think that's something that he needs to kind of step on that gas because he's 2 assists off David Beckham, which is quite exciting in the Premier League. I think one man that has come into the side and looked really good with City, Guardiola is looking for who's going to be the striker. Ferran Torres started the season. Sterling had a little bit of a spell but didn't look good. And I tell you what, Phil Foden as a false 9 at the moment is probably the best way to use Phil Foden. His pass over the top to Cancelo was so good. Dropped deep onto the halfway line. Cancelo made a run from the inside left channel. Round the goal, or put it through the goalkeeper's legs. Perfect. João Cancelo has been a breath of fresh air again this season. Absolutely superb performances. And I think when we look at the average positions for Man City, we can see how Walker and Cancelo both play in a slightly inside role compared to that traditional like wide man. Can see probably a little bit better from the heat map, as you can see coming inside left quite a lot in the final third, also holding the width at times as well, but chopping onto that left hand side. I think João Cancelo has really stepped up this season. First in the Premier League for touches, passes into the box, and second for interceptions and progressive carries, and also passes into the final third for Man City this season. Massive threat for Brighton. Brighton, though, defensively very sound this season. Duffy, Dunk and Burn have provided some absolute physical threat, but ability as well in possession. Basuma may be back as well following his little spell in the cells. Cucurella and Joel Veltman to play as wing-back. Still missing Tariq Lamptey and Trossard and Mopé up top. I've quite liked Adam Lallana this season. When I've seen him playing for Brighton, controlling the tempo, also looking to spread the play and so forth. In the last game against Norwich, 100 touch of the ball, 74 passes completed, 4 long passes completed, won one of his 2 tackles. For Brighton, Cucurella has provided some real good thrust for Brighton against not only Norwich but Arsenal as well. In terms of chance created, 4 against Arsenal, 3 against Norwich City. He's created more chances from open play than any other Brighton player this season. Ted's going 1-1, Ewan 5-0, ABCD 1-1, Diard's going 2-0, Dayan's going 3-1, smashing performance by City. Stones compliments Diaz more than Laporte from Modpog. Like that analysis. Ash going 2-0 City. Might be a different story if Brighton had a different striker. And Redman going with a 3-0 win for Manchester City. Arsenal Aston Villa I think this is a point in the season for both clubs where they need to start picking up points. Arsenal have had a good little run, mini little resurgence with good results. Against Norwich, Burnley, Wimbledon in the Cup, beating Tottenham. But the last two draws against Brighton and Crystal Palace have been slightly disappointing with some mixed performances. The Brighton game, Arsenal were pretty anonymous, played on the counter-attack. And against Crystal Palace, Arsenal started supremely well, but had to wait for a 95th equaliser from Lacazette to, of course, get across the line. I think for Arsenal, there's a few points of question for this week. Saka obviously went off at half-time last week, so I think the biggest decision point for Arsenal is who comes in for Saka. Arsenal, under Arteta, have played a number of systems, but it seems at the moment that they're kind of stuck a little bit on this 4-2-3-1 shape. That at times looks like a 4-3-3. I think Arteta spoke midweek in the press conference how they started supremely well in the 4-3-3 shape at the start of the game against Crystal Palace, but it didn't quite work after 20 minutes. So maybe we'll see Arteta reverting to the 4-2-3-1 with Lokonga and Partey. Lokonga, of course, did get caught on the ball for one of the Palace goals and needs to be a little bit quicker in those situations. Obviously, just coming to the Premier League, needs to be adaptable. But I think for Saka, if Saka's not fit in the game, we're not quite sure whether he's going to be fit yet. I think bringing in Nicolas Pepe would be a big bonus. Pepe's shown some good form this season. Of course, cut inside from that right-hand side and got a kind of trademark shot across the goal that led to the first Arsenal goal in the last game. For Aston Villa, the 3-5-2 has become a bit of a mainstay in that side. We saw Emi Buendia starting in the midfield three last week to kind of give them a little bit more thrust going forward, a little bit more creativity in there, but could expect Jacob Ramsey maybe to come back into the side in this bigger game. Ramsey's pressing against Chelsea especially was really good with John McGinn. Talking John McGinn's probably the form player for Villa this season. 7 games played, 2 goals and an assist, but it's his work rate and his ability to step in and make tackles, 2.1 tackles per game, 1 interception, winning the ball back 3 times, very, very box-to-box, winning 5.6 duels per game. And against Wolverhampton Wanderers, a goal and an assist, a superb game. You can see how aggressive he is to win the ball back, but also to create. And I think that's the side of John McGinn. He is a box-to-box midfielder, as I'd class. And I think box-to-box midfielders are moving on towards that complete side, in terms of winning the ball back through tackles, interceptions, having shots, completing dribbles, creating chances. Very, very sort of old-school 90s football from John McGinn. But he's going to be a threat, I think, pressing high. We saw Lokonga get robbed last week against Crystal Palace. Where, of course, Conor Gallagher jumped on him out of the formation, out of the system, put pressure on him. Then they turned over the ball and Odsonne Edouard scored. That is a danger for Arsenal with John McGinn lurking. John McGinn is a really good presser. Ollie Watkins has got 3 Premier League goals versus Arsenal. Only against Liverpool has he scored more. Watkins actually had 7 shots and only 5 on target of those to get the 3 goals versus Arsenal. Seems to be clinical. Could be a guy that may be putting the ball in the back of net following a quick transition from Aston Villa, who look good on the break this season. In terms of Arsenal, they are unbeaten when Aaron Ramsey has started for them. In the 6 games, they've kept 4 clean sheets in those games. Aaron Ramsey really surprising people in the goal. Unfavoured when he signed, but I think he's playing some really good football. Guys, get your score predictions in right now. Arsenal, Aston Villa. Party is only just getting started, guys. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you get your scores into the comments below for all the big games that we dive through. And check out SofaScore. Absolute banger of an app. Trust me, guys. And we'll see you next time on Statman Dave Clips. See you later.